We continue to talk off-season moves, disappointing playoff losses, and even some Kings free agent signings. That and more on this fan feedback edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of Locked On NHL Game Night, a daily podcast and YouTube show wrapping up the night in the NHL. Just wrapped up our last episode just a few moments ago. And I'm also a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. It is time for another Kings fan feedback show, your chance to critique, praise, complain, question, celebrate, and pontificate about our Los Angeles Kings. The first two emails I'm going to read, I somehow missed from last week's show, so I apologize to Karen and Doug, and we will lead off this week's show with their emails. We start with Karen in Valencia. She says, "Hey, Eddie, I try listening to your show every day, and I love all your knowledge and opinions. Thank you. My husband and I have been fans since 1986, so we have definitely lived through some tough losses. I think being older, you do tend to forget just how heartbreaking some of these losses were. For us, after losing the stick game, coming home and during two more overtime losses at home rank up there for us. Carson hitting the post in one of those losses still resonates in our mind. The only silver lining for me is Canada has yet to win a cup since then. I know eventually they will, but it has lessened the sting of 93. Thanks for all you do. I found the podcast during the playoffs last season, and I've loved it. Looking forward to the day you sit with the Locked On Oilers guy, and we do beat them." And that was Karen in Valencia. Thank you, Karen. I honestly don't remember the Jimmy Carson off the post. I've got all those games, believe it or not, on VHS tapes, and I do have a VHS DVD player here in my office. I should really go back and watch those games. And it's not just the finals games. I've got all the playoff games between the Kings and the Flames and the Canucks and the Maple Leafs. If I have time, I should find some time to try and go back and watch those games and get reacquainted with that whole series. It's been over 30 years after all. So it is kind of funny. I actually still kind of have a distaste for the Montreal Canadiens all these years later because of that loss in the finals. And I've said this before, but I was certainly bummed out over the Marty McSorley stick thing and how the Kings lost. But I was a new fan at that point. I really got into the Kings that year in 93, which really, sold me on being a Kings fan. But it didn't hurt as much because I didn't have as much skin in the game, I guess, at that point. So, yeah. Our next email comes from Doug, and he says he is in Prescott, Arizona. Now, I always thought it was Prescott, but he spelled it out phonetically. He says it is Prescott. So I'll take his word for it. Kind of like I live in San Pedro, California, and if you're not from San Pedro, you would probably pronounce it San Pedro or Pedro, maybe. But the locals call it Pedro, and so if you don't call it that, we know you're not from around here. Anyway, Doug in Prescott, Arizona says, enjoy the show very much, and I listen to it almost every day. I wanted to comment on a couple of topics you had on the show and give you a little feedback. First, I enjoy when you interview people from the media that aren't connected to the team. Russell Morgan and Andrew Knoll are my favorites. Totally disagree with your view that the Kings should pursue Mitch Marner. They would be much better off with signing multiple players like Brock Besser, who I think would fit nicely with the Kings. Lastly, on your list of most disappointing Kings playoff games, I enjoyed the show, but not some of the memories it brought up. I think you left off my personal number one. The 1975 loss at home to the Maple Leafs in the deciding game was devastating. The Kings had 105 points that season and were huge favorites to defeat Toronto. There was also a huge brawl in the third period, instigated by future King Tiger. My face is so flat I could bite a wall Williams when he hit Rogie. And again, that was Doug in Prescott, Arizona. I think it was the legendary LA Times columnist Jim Murray who said that Tiger Williams' face was so flat he could walk up to a wall and bite it. I believe that was the quote. His nose was almost completely flat from all the fighting for some fans of a later generation, very Ian LePerriere-like. As far as the interviews with the non-Kings people, I mean, look, I like to get voices from different places. People who work for the Kings, people who don't work for the Kings. And how that kind of happens is, for the most part, it kind of just happens organically. I'm not saying I haven't reached out to people and asked them to come on the show that I didn't know necessarily, but a lot of the people that we have on, like Russell Morgan, like Austin Stanovich, are people that I've just kind of become friends with in the press box, and just ask them to come on the show. And some of the people we haven't had, and Andrew Knoll is one of them, from the LA Daily News, I don't know. We just never talk to each other in the press box. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm not saying it's my fault. But I should probably reach out to him and get him on the show. So we will definitely keep the interviews going all off season, but we're going to talk to a lot of different people. We'll have some fan interviews as well as the off season goes along. The 1975 loss that you mentioned to the Maple Leafs, that was a little before my time. So I will definitely take your word on that. And I appreciate you bringing up that as one of the tougher losses, the LA Kings in the playoffs. Our next email comes from Andy Underberger from Parts Unknown. I like saying that last name, Andy. Maybe it was a bit tough for you growing up as a kid, but Andy Underberger kind of reminds me of, now I'm blanking on his name, RJ Umberger, former NHL player. It came in my head as soon as I thought I forgot it. Anyway, Andy's checking in. He says, I've been a fan of a long time, going back to the Robitaille rookie season. I enjoy your show and the comments from the fans. Here's my thoughts. First, this is not a Kings team that is currently capable of winning a cup. It starts from behind the bench, coaching staff, and the players on the ice. Before I go further, I encourage your listeners to check out an interview with Dean Lombardi on the Cam and Stick podcast, link below. The interview begins about 90 minutes in. Dean brings up some great insights on how to build a winning culture and also goes through his lessons learned. I would love for the Kings to bring him back, but he clearly says he has no interest in becoming a GM again in the podcast. Here are my thoughts. In order to win the cup, you do not need a superstar talent like Mitch Marner. To win the cup, you need to be able to roll four lines and have 3 or 4 solid D pairings that can spread out the ice time. Also, you need leadership and character players, which the current roster lacks significantly. The cup-winning teams in 12 and 14 rolled 4 lines relentlessly and had the leadership and character type players who took over the locker room and bench when needed. Plus, they had a coach that pushed them. Compare the current roster to the rosters from 2012 and 2014. There's a big gap in character and leadership. Going into next year, I don't understand why you would not want a player like Corey Perry on this team, other than he's a pain to play against, which is exactly what the team needs. I would love to have a player like Sam Bennett next year, but I don't know why he would leave his current team. They're built to win. The Kings are not. And that was from Andy in Parts Unknown. Well, Andy, just to kind of clarify what I said I didn't want Corey Perry on the team. I didn't say I didn't want a Corey Perry type of player on the team, because I agree with your point. I do think the Kings could use a player like that. I just personally don't like Corey Perry. Matthew Tkachuk would be another one. Like a Brad Marchand or a Sam Bennett, I'd be happy to have. They're all the same guys. They're just, personally, I just can't stand Corey Perry or Matthew Tkachuk. So it's a personal thing as far as those two guys go. And I know they say, those are the guys that you would love them on your team. You hate them on the other team, but you love them on your team. I wouldn't. I would not love Corey Perry on the LA Kings, even though I will admit they need a player like him. I just dislike him that much. So that's just it's a personal thing. But again, I do agree with your point that the Kings could definitely use somebody like that. Our next email comes from Nick. He's also in Parts Unknown. He says, love the show. Thank you. Regarding Mike Fuda, the Kings opted not to renew his contract. See the article below. Also, I can't remember which podcast he was on, but he discussed it and said basically there was a communication issue between him and Rob Blake, and he took responsibility for some of that. Blake has his own guys in there, Murray, Emerson, etc. I assume Fuda was not part of that crew. I hope the Kings re-signed Tanner Jeannot. He's my favorite, and they missed him. He's tough as nails and a great guy. Also, regarding the Frank Vatrano contract, I think another element of the deferred salary was that Frank would not be living in California in the years of the deferred payments. Keep up the great work. And again, that was Nick in Parts Unknown. The deferred payments thing also reminded me of something people may not realize, and it's not really that, it's related, but Did you know that when the Kings play on the road, that the players get taxed in that particular state, even though their residency is in California? When they play in Utah, for example, they get taxed by the state of Utah for working in their state, which I didn't know about until a few years ago, which I thought was kind of crazy. So at the end of the year, when they're like filing their taxes, of course, they've got somebody doing it for them, but they have to file like tax returns in every state, or I guess even country, right, that they play in throughout the season, which I think is kind of crazy. As for the article that Nick referenced about Mike Fuda, it was from the LA Times, written by Helene Elliott, May 11th of 2020. And I will read the first couple of paragraphs from the article. It said, quote, Kings assistant general manager Michael Fuda, who worked in scouting and development, played a key role in building the rosters of their 2012 and 2014 Stanley Cup championship teams, will leave the organization following the imminent expiration of his contract. Fuda was promoted to assistant general manager in April of 2017, one of the first moves made by Rob Blake after Blake succeeded Dean Lombardi as general manager. Before that, Fuda had been the Kings' vice president of hockey operations and director of player personnel, titles and responsibilities he was given by Lombardi in May of 2014 as a way to keep Fuda when rival teams expressed interest in hiring him away. Before that, Fuda was the co-director of amateur scouting and had worked for the Kings for 13 seasons. So as Nick said, it was his contract was up. The Kings decided not to renew it, and it sounded like it was a mutual parting. And I still think he probably left on good terms. I don't think he wasn't fired by the team, but he was a Dean Lombardi hire, not a Rob Blake hire, although Blake did keep him around for a little while afterwards. All right, we still have many more emails to come. We'll do that next. You're on Locked on LA Kings, your team every day. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Let's continue with the emails, and we get one from Scott in Simi Valley, who is a regular emailer. He says, well, with every game Sam Bennett's asking average annual value is going up, LOL. I don't expect the Kings to pay what Bennett will bring, even if he wanted to play here, and maybe that's for the best. But if we were to re-sign Jeannot and add Brad Marchand, their combined sandpaper could go a long way. The other Kings would need to step up some too. Like you, I didn't think that Edmondson played tough last season. Some of the most senior Kings have misused the term human nature lately, but I do believe it is human nature for young players to learn snarl from the best agitators, especially in the playoffs. It's going to be a great finals, though I can't help but think the Kings could have been in it. I don't think it's any coincidence that many of the league's most effective sandpaper guys are still playing. In my humble opinion, unless he drops his asking price, which won't happen, the Kings should ignore Marner and re-sign all their guys except maybe Riddick. Add a keeper and a key skater or two, but no one over $8 million a year, and then get a top head coach when the time is right. It seems to me that time has passed, but another is bound to come. And that is Scott in Simi Valley. You mentioned about you wonder about the Kings losing to the Oilers, the possibilities that they could have won that series, and kind of what could have been. Elliot Friedman, one of the best insiders in hockey and a fine podcaster in his own right, has a theory that not all first-round losses are first-round losses. For example, the Tampa Bay Lightning losing to the Florida Panthers in round one. Yes, it's a loss in round one, but that's not a first-round opponent. And in his eyes, you shouldn't consider that a first-round loss. It's an interesting theory, and I get what he's saying, and it does kind of make me wonder, the Kings being eliminated by a team that has gone to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row, is that really a first-round loss? I mean, it is, but I get, like I said, I get the point. And I don't think I'm trying to make myself or anybody else feel better about what happened, but I think it's an interesting point. As for Mitch Marner, certainly I think a lot of Kings fans are very split on the decision to go after Mitch Marner. I will say it again. I really love the idea of the Kings going after the top free agents available, and obviously Mitch Marner is one of them, probably more than I am in love with actually getting Mitch Marner. I don't think Mitch Marner is a missing piece type of guy. Does he make your team better because he's just a really good player? Yes, but no one's going to say, we signed Mitch Marner, now we're going to win the cup. It just, he's not that kind of a guy. He can help your team and he can be a piece, but he's not the piece. And if you're going to have a guy that's making that much money, kind of should be the piece, in my opinion. Our next email comes from Dave Onisic in Long Beach. And Dave, thank you for the phonetic. That's the right word, right? Phonetic spelling of your name. Yeah. Dave says, every day are here. Thank you, Dave. Been a Kings fan since the late 60s. Wow. So I've seen my share of horrible seasons, but I feel like we're not too far off from competing for a cup. Interesting. We had somebody else say we are far off from competing for a cup. To make the last step, I propose 2 deals for Ken Holland to take. Number 1, sign Mitch Marner. It would give us a true 90 to 100% superstar. This means Kuzmenko wouldn't be resigned. Number 2, trade for Jason Robertson from the Stars. Maybe a first-round pick plus Trevor Moore could be a start. Dallas might need some cap space, and this deal gets them over $3 million. It also brings another hometown player to the team. Robertson is from Arcadia. I guess we'll see how aggressive Holland is going to be in his first season. He might need to do some cap gymnastics to make these deals and try to sign Gavrikov. And again, that was from Dave in Long Beach. Dave, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I do not believe Mitch Marner will score 100 points with the LA Kings. 80 points, yeah, I think he can get to 80, maybe 90. By the way, the last player to score 100 points in a season for the LA Kings was Wayne Gretzky. He had 130 points in the 1993-94 season. So it's been a while since the Kings have had a 100-point player. Also, look, Jason Robertson's a fine player. I don't know why in the world the Dallas Stars would want to trade him. He's still under contract for next season. And the Stars have, as far as giving up a first-round pick, the Stars have no interest in getting a first-round pick. They're a team that's trying to win a cup now. They don't really want not worried about, like, a team that wants first-round picks is a team that's rebuilding, and they're not rebuilding. So, I don't see them wanting to trade him. You say we're not too far off from competing for a cup. I hope you're right. And again, maybe with the success the Oilers have had, if we can just get past them, maybe we are cup contenders. I don't know. It would be nice to find out and see. But then again, and I'll repeat myself on this, you might think, if we just beat the Oilers, we may have a deep run. And maybe that's true, but we got to beat the Oilers first. And I don't know if that's happening anytime soon. Brian in Tampa checks in. He says, I've been a Kings fan since the Gretzky era, like you, Eddie. And I was also racking my brain to think of major Kings free agent signings. Pavel Demitra was the top one I can remember. He was coming off some great seasons with the Blues. The Ilya Kovalchuk signing would have been my second choice. Luke Robitaille signing his final Kings return was my third pick if I had to come up with something. Like you, the Kings almost never land top free agents. We absolutely have to sign Mitch Marner if he is interested in joining our team. It's a no-brainer. Same goes for Sam Bennett. The only risk is cap space, which is becoming less and less valuable in the future. I agree with recent guests like Carl Bolikian. Jim Hiller deserves to keep his job, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ken Holland replaces him when we're struggling in the regular season, or if we're struggling in the regular season. Peter DeBoer, Jay Woodcroft, and Gerard Gallant would be interesting options. Go Kings, go. And that was Brian in Tampa. Brian sent this in before the Pete DeBoer news, which we will get into in a moment. As for the Kings free agent signings, you mentioned Pavel Demitra and the late, great Pavel Demitra. He was very good with the St. Louis Blues, but he only played one season in LA. That was 2005, 2006. He had 25 goals and 62 points. Nice season. But I mean, it's hard. He was a good player, but not a great player. If that's our top ever free agent signing, a guy that played here for 1 year, that obviously is not. I mean, I don't have a problem mentioning him, but it kind of just goes to show the Kings just don't sign any real big free agents historically. And if you don't know, Pavel Demitra tragically dying in a plane crash with the rest of his team when he was playing in the KHL in Russia. And I'm pretty sure I saw this year that his old team, Lokomotiv, won the KHL championship. So nice return to glory for that team that had that unthinkable tragedy happen many years ago. All right, some more emails to wrap up this show. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Brian in Los Alamitos, another weekly emailer, checks in to say, speculation is that Pete DeBoer and or Rod Brindamore will be fired. Do you think either of these head coaches would be a good fit for the Kings? I know there's no chance of Hiller being dismissed before the season, but I was wondering if DeBoer or Brindamore are the type of coaching upgrade the Kings need to go deeper into the playoffs. On a lighter note, what did you think of the Kings' new jerseys? I became a Kings fan during the first version of the Chevy logo, of which I was not the biggest fan. So to see the team return to a fatter and larger version of the logo was not an exciting change for me. However, over the course of the season, I grew to like the new jersey more and more. Finally, the Kings said good riddance to the embarrassingly awful home plate and are no longer one of the worst and most boring dressed teams in the league, in my opinion. Did your opinion of the I guess he's saying, what is your opinion of the new jerseys? Thanks for another great week of shows. And again, that was Brian in Los Alamitos. I'm going to answer your question about the coaching in a moment because we have another email asking pretty much the same thing. As for the Chevy logo, as you know, that's the year that I started to become a Kings fan as well, the Gretzky years when they had that Chevy logo the first time around. So for nostalgia's sake, I was nice to see the change. I also did not like that home plate logo, even though we won our 2 cups wearing that. I never liked those uniforms. I've said this a million times. I will continue to say it. I always think the Kings should have a crown as their primary logo on the front of the jersey. I'm wearing an older style Kings jersey right now. If you're watching on YouTube, and it's got the crown on the front here. They don't have that style crown anymore. I've got another different crown style on the top on my hat. I would like to see them go to the old school King's crown with the current colors. I think that would be cool. Maybe they'll have that as a third jersey coming up this year. If they do, I will absolutely buy it. I will say, take my money. But like I've always felt the logo on the front of the Kings jersey should always be a crown. It's just too perfect. John in Utah, or as I like to call him, Johnny Utah. Sure he's never heard that before. He says, I saw the Dallas Stars fired head coach Pete DeBoer. Do you think he would be a good fit in LA? As far as free agents the Kings have signed, I agree. It's been a list that there's been nothing to brag about, especially as you said, for a market like LA. You didn't mention Philip Deneau or Pavel Demitra. Again, not really big stars either, but I thought they were worth a mention. Thanks to the shows during the offseason, I started listening about a year ago, and you keep me connected to the team. I don't listen every day, but when I have longer commutes, I will listen to 3 or 4 episodes in a row to get caught up. Also, do you know if tickets are available for fans to purchase for the NHL draft? Thanks, go Kings, go. And that was Johnny Utah. For those who may not know, Pete DeBoer, a very successful NHL coach, was fired on Friday after taking the Dallas Stars to the Western Conference Finals for, I believe, the 3rd year in a row. Definitely 2 years in a row. They lost both times to the Oilers. He's taken 4 different teams to the conference finals and 2 teams, the Devils and the Sharks, to the Stanley Cup final. Now, he's never won a Stanley Cup, but still a very successful coach that seems to wear out his welcome in about 4 years. So do I think he'd be an upgrade over what we have now? And this is not me kind of like crapping on Jim Hiller, but the answer is yes. If circumstances were different, I would have more patience, more of a stomach to give Jim Hiller a chance to show what he can do. But not having any playoff wins since 2014, my patience is done. I want to win now. I want to get out of the first round now. And if hiring a Pete DeBoer or a Peter Laviolette or Rod Brindamore, who still has not been let go by Carolina, I don't think will be, if hiring that guy makes us a better playoff team, which I think it does because all those guys have playoff experience and wins, then yeah, I would hire those guys. As for the tickets to the NHL draft, I looked on a couple of different ticket apps, and I've seen tickets between like $80 and $100. So there are tickets available. if you are interested. All right, some more emails are actually, no, we've already had 2 breaks. What am I talking about? Our next email comes from Jill in Hermosa Beach. She says, is it bad that I'm actually kind of sort of rooting for the Oilers to win? I just think I'd feel better about things knowing we blew it to a team that won it all. Don't get me wrong, I hate them, and it will make me a bit sick to see their fans celebrating, but maybe it will also push us to be better, knowing we have to go through the champs to win it all, and we need to be much better. Thanks for all your work. Go Kings go, Jill in Hermosa Beach. Well, you asked the question, is it bad that you're rooting for the Oilers? The answer is yes. You are bad. You are a bad person, Jill. I'm kidding, but don't do that. No. I recorded this show after game 2. The Florida Panthers won in double overtime, and I absolutely jumped off my couch and yelled some words in happiness. I am rooting so hard against the Oilers. I would love to see Connor McDavid crying again after they lose in the finals. So I get your point, though. I really do. I can't say I don't understand your point. I do, but I can't root for the Oilers. I hate them with a passion. So yeah, it is kind of bad that we can't root for the Oilers. So, but I do agree a little bit with what you're saying. I mean, the Oilers have kind of set a pretty significant bar, pretty high. And the Kings, if they want to do anything in the playoffs, got to go through those guys. So I just don't know that tinkering with the roster and making little tweaks here and there is going to be enough to get us past those guys, because they're not going anywhere. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are going to be there for years to come. So I think we've got to make significant upgrades to get by them. And look, you can say we should have beat them this year. I thought we were going to beat them this year, but we didn't. And everybody thinks, well, we'll be close again next year in those little tweaks. We don't know that. We don't know. So I think it's going to, maybe if it pushes us, if the Oilers having this success pushes the Kings to have to be better and make more, important, significant moves, then maybe that is a good thing. But we shall see. Hey, thank you to everyone who took the time to email this week. The show is literally not possible without your participation. So thank you again to all who took the time to email. I appreciate it. For you everydayers, those who listen and watch Locked On Kings every day, coming up next week, we'll have a whole new slate of shows. We will talk about more offseason potential targets for the Kings. We'll talk about more draft prospects with the NHL draft getting closer and closer. We'll do some special features as well. We'll continue to have interviews with Kings insiders, and also we're going to do some fan interviews as well. All that coming up in the weeks to come here on Locked On LA Kings. If you would like to send an email for a future feedback show or for any reason, lockedoneddie@gmail.com is the email address. You can also leave your comments if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. And we also would love you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.